Hello everyone, and welcome to Part 2, Object-Oriented Programming. Object-oriented programming is a way to use Python to create our own objects. And sometimes it can be a point of great confusion for beginners, and mainly because it's often just taught poorly. You're kind of just thrown into object-oriented programming, taught a few keywords, and expected to understand everything all at once. We're going to try our best to save you from any confusion by systematically building up and showing you slowly the thought process behind object-oriented programming, otherwise known as OOP, and why we'd even need to use it. We will use it quite a bit for Django, so let's get started by showing you the basics. This is going to be a single .py file for the notes, part 2 object-oriented programming.py, but it's going to be multiple video lectures, so keep that in mind. We're going to break it into understandable steps. Let's go to the editor now. Alright. Let's start off by trying to understand the fundamental idea behind object-oriented programming. Why would we even want to use it? Well, hopefully you remember when we were first learning about basic data types and basic structures, I could do something like this. Say mylist is equal to 1, 2, 3. And then when I said mylist dot, notice that I get a bunch of methods here. Append, count, extend, pop, remove, etc. So there's a lot of methods available to me on this object. And then I could say append 4 here. Save this, and then do something like print mylist. I save this, run python notes.py, or whatever file you have, and I get 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the idea behind object-oriented programming is this. So far, we have the capability to create a very simple function, or even a very complex function. What we don't yet know how to do is build something like a list object. We don't know yet how can you build an object and then have methods inside of it or attributes inside of it that you can use to affect the object itself. And that's the whole idea of object-oriented programming. How are we able to actually create our own objects in Python? We know how to use the built-in objects in Python, but we yet don't know how to actually build our own. And the first step on your journey of learning about object-oriented programming is to realize that in Python, everything is an object. And you can check an object type by saying type and then passing in an object itself. So for example, if I pass in a list here, I don't have to save it as a variable. I can just say type, and let's print out that type. So I will say print type here. It tells me it's of the class list. And class is going to be one of the keywords we use when we're actually learning about object-oriented programming. So here, I know that this is type list. And I don't even actually have to have anything inside of it. It can just be an empty list. I can run this, and it'll say class list. And if I replace this just to be parentheses, remember that's how we define a tuple. So if I save this and run this, it says class tuple. And we can see this for a variety of things. Let's say I pass in a number, type, make sure my parentheses are balanced there, and I run this, it'll say class int, or class integer. Make this 20.0. Save this, run this, and it says class floating point. So what we want to know is how can we create our own classes in order to create our own object. So we keep seeing this keyword class, and we want to know how can we use it. So let's actually show you. So now that we understand everything in Python is an object, we can use the class keyword. And the user-defined objects are created using this keyword. The class is essentially a blueprint that defines the nature of a future object. And from classes, we can then construct instances of that class. An instance is just a specific object created from a particular class. So for example, previously we created the object mylist. That was an instance of a list object. Let's see how we can actually use class. First off, you start with the class keyword. And if you hit enter here, you'll get class auto-completed for you. Let's create a sample class. And note the syntax highlighting here. And by convention, class names are always capitalized. That way you know whether you're calling a class or a function. Functions are lowercase, classes start with an uppercase. Then we have close parentheses, colon, and then what goes here in your class. Right now, I'm going to use the pass keyword to not do anything. We'll just say pass. So I'm going to save that. And then over here, I will say x is equal to, and I will say sample, close parentheses. And then I'm going to print the type of x. Save this. Let's run it. And here it says class main.sample. And we'll discuss what main is in a future lecture. But right now, we can see that I'm getting a very similar result to what I saw previously with the built-in classes. I've now created my own class and my own object called sample. all using the class keyword. Alright, that's it for this lecture. So far, all I want you to understand is that everything in Python is an object, and we can create our own objects using the class keyword. And we can check with the type built-in function what the actual class is. Coming up next, we're going to learn how to add attributes and methods to a class. And we're going to start right where we left off in this video. I'll see you at the next lecture.